back to Educator Dr. Mom TV. So today I'm going to be doing a quick video on the top lessons that I learned being a new mom. Recently, I had a couple of young moms ask me what is the best parenting advice that you would give for a new mom. And so I thought it was a good idea to sit down and really be thoughtful about those things instead of just randomly saying the things that came off the top of my head. And so I sat down and I really thought about it and came up with a list to share with them that I did share with them. And so I also wanted to share it here in case any new moms are wondering the same thing, and also because I want to be able to document it for my children as they have kids. I want to be able to remember this advice. And so I thought it would be a good idea to document it on the channel. And so I made a list. I'm going to be looking down at my phone. Excuse me looking down. But I'm going to share 7 things. So these are the top 7 things that I learned being a new mom. And so the first one is, you are not in control. And this is an aha moment that I got right away within the first couple of days of bringing my daughter home from the hospital. I had a real you are not in control moment that allowed me to release the fears that I was having, the anxiety that I was having. I think it was the day after she was born, we were still in the hospital, and on the news, it just so happened that 2 infants passed from SIDS in our area, and it was on the news. And it really shook me. It apparently scared me more than I thought, because once I brought her home, I was terrified when she was asleep. Like, it just really scared me. I couldn't sleep. I was constantly, like, checking her, watching her. My husband will tell you that the first night we had her home, the next morning he woke up and I had a spoon on the floor next to me, because I was, checking to make sure she was breathing. I was just so afraid to the point where I was missing enjoying those first moments that you have when you first bring your baby home. They're just so precious. And I realized, and my husband helped me with this, and he reminded me that she's in God's hands. We've already prayed about this. We will continue to pray for him to cover her and for us to have wisdom on how to best take care of her. And so you just have to rest in that and have peace with that. And so we had that conversation, and then I went and I took a shower, and I just also prayed, and I just came back totally different. Like, it was almost like a moment to remind myself, like, right, you're not in control. You staying up all night holding that spoon up to her nose is doing nothing except for exhausting you. And it's just pointless to do that. And so I really just kind of released control that day, and it was one of the best decisions that I could have made as a parent, because there are going to be so many things that you want to protect them from, that you want to make sure doesn't harm them. And at the end of the day, life is going to happen, and you just have to prepare yourself to be there for them, and you can protect them as much as you can, but to also just believe and have faith that God will take care of them. And that is what gives me peace every day in this crazy world that we live in right now. When I think, when my brain starts to drift off into, what is this world going to be like? How are they going to be able to do X, Y, and Z? I stop and I pull myself back, and I remember that I'm not in control, but I know the one who is, and that gives me peace. So that is the number 1 thing. Number 2 is make sure that you and baby are getting as much sleep as possible. And so I started a mommy and me class maybe a couple of days before it was time for my husband to go back for work. So I can't remember how long he stayed at home with me, but I wanted to have connections with humans. I mean, with humans. Like babies are humans, you know what I mean? Like with adults throughout the day. Because when you're at home every day by yourself, although I could go to my mom's house and, you know, she was there for me. But I just wanted a little bit more interaction and interaction with a community that was kind of going through the same thing I was going through. And so in that mommy and baby class, one of the things that the baby nurse said was she just really emphasized the importance of sleep regulation and making sure that the baby is on some type of a sleep schedule, that you are on some type of a sleep schedule. And that really helped me, because at first when the baby would sleep, that's when I thought I would, you know, wash my pumping instrument, I would do laundry, I would clean, you know, that's when I thought I would get things done. But I quickly realized that if I'm getting things done while she's napping, then when she's awake, I'm really sleepy and I'm not able to enjoy her as much as I want to. I'm falling asleep while I'm nursing instead of like enjoying the moment of her nursing. And so that really helped me. And we were really intentional about getting her on a sleep schedule, and that just was huge for both of our children. Like that really, really helped us, and it helped our children. Like babies want to sleep and they want to eat. If you can feed them and make sure that they're getting enough sleep, you're gonna have a happy baby for the most part. We did. I mean, that just worked for us, making sure that they were fed and that they were sleeping, getting regular naps in on some type of a schedule. And we were able to kind of, not a strict schedule, you know, they kind of let us on a schedule, you know, like my son, I think he was more of an eater, so he woke up a little bit more frequently. She would sleep a little bit more, she would sleep a little longer, and so we didn't wake them up to eat or anything like that. We let them sleep and sleep as long as they could, and then they would eat. And so it's kind of like a natural thing that happened, but we made sure that they were sleeping in the same, you know, that we weren't you know, they weren't sleeping all in these different little places. That helped for them, like figuring out what they want to sleep in. And we tried, for my daughter, we tried everything, because she didn't like the bassinet, she didn't like the pack and play, she didn't like the swing. I mean, she would sleep in the swing only if it was moving. That's not going to work. You know, you can't swing all the time to sleep. But it's like sleeping flat. It was hard for us to figure that out within the first couple of days. And actually, she was most comfortable in her crib, which, you know, most people say, like, you can't put them in their crib too soon, or it's too big of a space. They're not going to like that because they're used to, you know, the tight confined spaces. And that just wasn't the case for her. By day 5, I believe it was, she was in her bed, in her crib, and she liked it. That's where she was able to sleep. It wasn't too big of a space for her. Maybe because she was bundled up in a little swaddle and she was really tight, she didn't realize she was in a big space. I'm not for sure, but just gotta figure out what works for them, and then just make sure that they're getting sleep, and make sure you're sleeping when they're sleeping, so that you can be refreshed and able to enjoy them. Okay, number 3, let dad be a part of the process. That was something that was very premeditated for us. We talked about it. You know, I asked because I knew that I was going to be nursing, and I wanted to make sure that dad was involved, because a lot of times if mom is nursing and dad doesn't have a chance to feed the baby, then they can maybe feel left out. And so we were really intentional about, okay, how are we going to do this so that you can be a part of that process too? And so my husband communicated that he did want to do like a bottle feeding at one point during the day. And at first we thought it would be the night feed. So I was pumping and making a bottle for her. And we did that from the very beginning too. And that's something I would for sure say, talk to your lactation person, nurse, or someone who can educate you on the nursing and the bottle, because I know some people say that if you give them a bottle too soon, then they'll have nipple confusion, and there's lots of literature out there about that. That wasn't the case for our children. I nursed and bottle fed from the very beginning. Maybe within the first couple of weeks, both of my children were trying bottles. You know, I made sure that they were latching on with me and that I was nursing regularly and successfully. And then we would introduce the bottle like once a day, just so that, you know, dad was being a part of the process. And then also it just gives mom a little bit of freedom to sleep an extra cycle, you know, because if you have to be up every 3 hours nursing. So for me, for him to do it, whenever he did it, I was able to get an extra round of sleep in, which was great. So that worked out for both of us. And I think initially he started at night and then he went to the mornings before he would go to work. And so you just got to figure out what works for you, but just for sure make sure that dad is a part of the process if you can. He also liked to do like skin to skin time, which was good, and it just made him feel included. He really talks about how much he enjoyed that, and he was a champ. Expect, like with my son, I know it was the nighttime feeding. With my daughter, it switched to the morning, but with my son, he did that. I think it was like a 10 o'clock feeding so that I could sleep through until about midnight or maybe 1 a.m. So that was huge. That helped me too. Okay, number 4, don't be afraid to ask for help. And so this really came full circle for me when I had my son, because I was physically unable to do some of the things that I was able to do with my daughter. So with my daughter, I was up and, you know, moving around and doing everything pretty quickly. With my son, I had to have an emergency C-section with him, and it was very painful. Like, it was a type of pain, like, it was really painful, and I couldn't do much. I couldn't do much. And thankfully, my sweet mother-in-law, she came. I always have my mom, but my mother-in-law came. I think she stayed for 2 weeks. And then my aunt came, and she stayed, I think, for a week. And so I had help. And I mean, at first, I asked for it too. You know, like, I think my mother-in-law, she was going to come anyway, but I think she stayed a little bit longer. I can't remember, but I know that I needed that help from both of them. And then my mom was always over helping too. And one day after, so if I had help that long, so let's say I had help, and he was in the NICU for quite a while too. So let's say it's into a month. I can't even remember exactly, but I know that it was maybe the first week that I was alone, that I didn't have help. And it was just a day where my son would not nurse. I don't know what was going on with him. He was just fussy. He would graze. He would only nurse for like a couple of minutes, and then he would be done. And then he would be screaming. He wasn't a crier. Like, neither one of my children cried a lot. So I could not understand what was going on. And I think my mom was out of town. I couldn't get access to my mom. Wherever she was, I couldn't get access to her. And my husband was in a meeting, and my daughter was fed up with the crying, and she was like putting her hands over her ears like, what is wrong with them? And I was about to lose it. I mean, no, I did. I cried. I know what I did was I put him in his swing. I sat her on the couch, and I turned on a cartoon for her to watch, and I went in the bathroom and I cried because I was like overwhelmed, and my stomach was hurting. My incision tore maybe like 3 or 4 weeks after when it was supposed to be healing. And so that was just like painful too. I was trying not to take the medicine, and that day I took the medicine. I finally was able to get in touch with my husband, and I was like, I need you now. You know, and I just had to say, you know, I hated to pull him from work. I rarely will ask for help unless I really need it, just because, you know, I'm just like that. I don't know why. I get that from my mom. But I needed help that day, and I was glad that I asked for it. He came home. I left the house, and I had some me time, and that was a lesson for me in just asking for that help when you need it, or when you feel like you're overwhelmed. The C-section really helped me to ask for help, because I couldn't do certain things. I just couldn't do it. And so I would say to any new mom, just ask for help. You're going to need it. And it is not a sign of weakness. It's a sign of wisdom. Because if you push yourself too far, then you end up in the bathroom on the floor crying like me. No, you're going to cry anyway, I'm sure, just because your emotions are all over the place. But a lot of times it'll be happy tears. But if you cry because you're overwhelmed, that's okay too. That's so normal. And just don't be afraid to ask for help. So I think I stayed on that point too long. Let me move on. Number five is something that I learned with my daughter, and it was this too shall pass. That's something that I had to start telling myself, because after a while, the sleepless nights start to catch up to you. Being tired starts to catch up with you. Having to jump into a routine again catches up with you. And when I had my daughter, once I went back to work, it's a lot of work to be a working mom, to have to pack up children, take children, come home with children, bathe children, cook dinner, get yourself together, do your work, bring work home. It is a lot, and it could get overwhelming. And so one thing that I would tell myself was, this too shall pass. Whether it's, whether it's your boobs hurting, there's all different types of things that come with having a baby. Your body changes, things don't look the same. And so you just have to remind yourself that this too shall pass. And what really helped me not complain about the things that weren't, the best. I mean, there are some great things about parenting, and then there's some things that are like, man, I wish that it wasn't like that. But what really helped me was understanding that somebody else is not getting this experience, and that kept me in check. When I have to get up in the middle of the night to feed my daughter, what crossed my mind is that someone's child is not waking up to eat, and so be thankful that yours is. And so what helped me to not complain was just being thankful that I was even able to experience the moment that we were in. And so knowing that it's going to change, it will go by so fast. Number 6, take care of yourself so that you can take care of everybody else. A lot of times, moms, especially new moms, just kind of forget about yourself, and you don't do the things that make you you. A lot of times we put our hobbies to the side, we put our friends to the side, we just stop doing the things that bring us joy. And so I would say to make sure that you don't forget to do that. One thing that I did intentionally when I had my daughter is one night a week, my husband would come home a little bit earlier. And at the time we lived in this downtown area, and there was a restaurant that was around the corner, and I would take my books, I would take my magazines, and I would just like have some me time. I would order a meal that I liked, I just would have kind of like pamper myself for the moment. And I needed that. Like, I love to read. I love to be able to just like have that time to myself. And so he was really good at us just putting that on the calendar so that it could happen. And I made sure that I was giving myself that time. I also would take baths and things like that. And so just make sure you're getting time in for yourself. And the last thing I will say is be in the moment. Be in the moment. I think that a lot of times, especially when you have a new baby, you just want to take a picture and you want to take a video of everything. And what I really noticed early on was that when I'm taking pictures and videotaping everything, that I missed being in the moment. Like, I didn't even look into your eyes for this moment because I was looking at you through a camera. And so although you want to capture pictures and videos, I would say to be mindful to put the phone down and to put the camera down and to actually create memories that will last longer than those pictures. And so for me, that was very helpful. I have lots of pictures and photos of my children, but what I have even more so are memories. Or now I can use photos to trigger a memory. So I have maybe a picture of us sitting right here, and I was cuddling both of them. I was just looking at pictures recently, and I remember that day. I remember that moment. I remember what my daughter's hair smelled like. She had just gotten out of the shower. I remember my son's little thick leg and how we were like squeezing it like it was a pork chop. Like, I remember everything about that moment because I took that one picture and then I stayed in the moment. And so just be really intentional about staying in the moment. Time flies. They're gonna change like you wouldn't believe it, and you want to capture as much of it as you can in your heart and in your mind. Don't forget to take pictures and videos, because I've seen the opposite too. Like, gosh, or when you get to this, or you have tons of pictures of the first one, and then you get to the second one, and that baby's book is like this little. I've heard people say that before. One of my aunts said, whatever you do for the first one, make sure you do for the second one, so that, you know, they don't feel slighted. Like, I remember when she told me that. Yeah, and so those are just my top 7 lessons that I learned. I learned so much more as a new mom, but those are the things that I felt like really helped me through both children so far, and they're things that I hope to be able to share with them, and hopefully they benefit you as well. So until next time, bye-bye.